Hey guys, welcome to the Heart of David, and I hope you guys are all doing well today. I don't have any particular topic today. It's just a mix of things. I just want to reiterate what I said yesterday about. Well, I told you that I was cleaning out my home, and that cleanliness is next to godliness. And I believe that's true. It doesn't particularly say that very phrase in the Bible. It doesn't say that phrase in the Bible, but it's true anyways. Just because it doesn't say it in the Bible doesn't make that true. I don't mean like God didn't say that, but it's just my guess that God would rather have a clean place. And my point was that, people who have had trauma in their lives, abused, whatever it is, battery, sexual abuse, having bad trips on drugs, whatever it is, tend to have more cluttered apartments, cluttered homes, and all that type of stuff. And, I'd seen titles on videos about doing that type of stuff for a long time. And I put it off for a long time, even though my apartment is all the things, my interests, my hobbies, all that type of stuff. It was just getting too much, and then have closets and you have to go deep in them, drawers, just like, my clothes are neat and everything, but it's like I have a lot of other stuff. Do a deep clean, go deep. That's just what I wanted to say about that. You know what I just heard? I just heard, and this was like 2 days ago. Do you know, and I want to make this, I got to highlight this. A lot of the things I talk about are like, what's going on, like, they're creating so much. Who is they? You know who they is. People behind the scenes on the left, but way behind the scenes, probably the rich families of the earth. That's just my guess. Create so much havoc behind the scenes, and then they're doing other stuff while they do that, right? And so we forget. We forget about things that are quite important, because if you have 5 to 10 things on the table at once, how are you going to focus on any one of them? And that's their plan. That's what I believe their plan is. Create chaos. Out of chaos comes control. And that's their plan, because they want someone to come in who they can say, hey, I can do this, right? This was 2 to 3 days old. And it was on Fox News. Now I had watched this. I had watched the Twin Towers just after they were hit. They kept replaying it over and over and over. And even though I made a video saying, there was a lot of thermite found in those buildings, right? There was like many tons of thermite. Jet fuel doesn't burn those. It would take twice the heat to burn those steel beams. It's just a fact. But, I'm not going to pretend to know everything, but the news was that, like, there's a group, 9/11 survivors, and they've been pressing for a very long time. There is a new video that has emerged, and so this is on the news, and they're saying that Trump or Biden in the election, I'm not trying to make this political, weren't bringing this up, and it was such a big issue. Of tape, because I knew on that day they did find it. Someone did tape record people from Saudi Arabia somewhere videotaping like the buildings falling. They have something to do with it. They have new video now, and they're sure of it, that it was Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is behind this. Now listen, this is what they're saying. This is the families that have investigated this for 23 years. So I saw that today. I'd like to hear more about this, if Saudi Arabia was behind this. Can you imagine? It's a pretty big deal. That's something that would never have been ignored before. And it's hard not to look at the political scene of the Arab League. What is it? 21 of them coming against Israel, boycotting, doing all that. So if you don't know that's happening, that's happening. When I get those things where all of a sudden I'm like that, I forget the very name of them. They're not supraventricular tachycardia, but they happen in tall, thin people. I was diagnosed with that, so I get my heart jumps very quickly. I get a massive adrenaline rush, right? And it can happen in periods of stress. So when you see me go like that, that's what that is. I think I said this yesterday. No, yeah, I said it about that. I said, although you have to learn who the Bible is written for, right? Paul's gospel versus the kingdom gospel versus Paul's gospel. It doesn't mean the Bible still isn't for us. All those lessons are still for us. But the Old Testament, listen, it's just a continuous story. That's what it is. It's a continuous story. And people aren't able to discern that, and they just read the New Testament. It's an honest thing when you first walk in, right? To think it's just completely two different stories, but it's a continuous story. And what did I say? I keep forgetting things, man. I think I just wanted to make the point, and maybe I did yesterday, that I think it's important to read the Old Testament, to go over the law. Not that the law means something to you and me, because it doesn't. But in it, all the way from Genesis to Deuteronomy, you learn about God's character. You learn about, some things seem so rash, right? But then when you learn why he's doing it, is to keep his people out of trouble. And it's all about love. It's only about love. And who is it for other people, atheists who argue against God say, how dare you let a child suffer this way and this and that? They just don't revert back to Genesis in the garden, because if they could, and they could really understand that, they would understand why. When Satan, who was the serpent, don't be fooled, and I don't think it was an actual serpent. I don't think it was a snake that was talking to Eve. I don't think that was it. But usurped Adam's, the way that you and I are supposed to be right now, enjoying everything, having no pain, never knowing sin, never knowing any of that stuff. But they don't understand that, because the Bible is foolishness to those who are perishing. The fool said in his heart, there is no God. I do get panic attacks on here. This is the first time I've really said this, and the only reason I really get them, so I chose to make a video a bit later today when I'm eating. So when I'm halfway through, I'm about halfway through right now, the pain in my abdomen is the colic and everything, and it's squeezing my throat and everything. It causes me panic attacks. So if you see that, that's what that is. It's not easy making these videos, man. I wanted to talk about one thing and read this just in case you didn't know, and then I guess I'll just finish this off. I didn't really have a lot to say today. I made that video the other day about the pains I go through, and there's a part in there that I wanted to expand upon. I want to tell you something I went through. I don't know, maybe it'll help. I don't know if it's not going to give you comfort in that way, but I understand that people like to hear what people have been through and made it through anyways. That's what I wanted to talk about. My video yesterday was titled, "Did God Send Me to You?" to the suffering. And maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I'm of the mind that the answer is yes. How can I think any other way? I picture myself. If you guys would have seen me in 2015, you would wonder how I'm even here right now. Lying in a bed with, picture lying on your back. My legs were up in the air like this, like my knees up. I couldn't even put them down because if I did, it felt like they were tearing, and it would pull my upper back. That's adhesive arachnoiditis. That's inflammation in my spine. And I wasn't eating. I quit eating because I had multiple types of colic. I didn't have a colic medication, so it wasn't even worth eating. I was about 95 pounds, guys. I was like right next to palliative care. My parents thought that's what they were going to have to do. Then my mom died about 2 years later, and something happened in my abdomen that actually made me want to get to my feet because I couldn't stand being in a bed any longer. It was a nightmare being there anyways. And I just want to say it was very painful being on my feet. I was wearing out all the time. My legs were so weak. I was so tired because I wasn't on a long-acting painkiller, and it was just wearing off on me. And I was at my parents' home, like literally, and I'd have to pace because my legs hurt so much. I couldn't sit down, lie down, and I didn't want to put myself in a position ever again where I'm in a bed and I start to rest and I start to think this is better than on my feet. It happens. So I forced myself. I was like literally dragging one of my legs in weakness around my house, and every time a short-acting painkiller wore off, I wanted to fall down and sleep. I was so tired. Anyways, I started a long-acting painkiller, and then I got better. Like I started getting a lot better, and I'm telling you, from that point, when I finally got all my diagnosis and all that type of stuff, by the grace of God, my body, my pain, by the help of diagnosis, which helped me outside psychologically, of course. If you can imagine going 13 and 18 years not knowing two major diagnoses, it helped, and through faith in God, without the Bible, man, I'm telling you, God regenerated me physically. I don't want to get into this technicality of what do people still have the gifts and all that type of stuff. I'm not going to get into that. I'll tell you this though, there are still miracles, and what happened to me was a miracle if you saw where I was and if you saw how long I was down there. It was hell. What I'm saying is this, is that God can regenerate anything. Don't limit God. Don't limit him. He doesn't like that. He doesn't. Well, I don't know, biblically you could say that, but I'm sure like he can do anything. Think of the valley of dry bones, right? I just watched a video yesterday of a man. I'm sure maybe you've seen it because it's been out just lately, or at least someone who did a video on him. You know, people tend to do a video, another person steals that idea. You don't know how old they are. It was a Chinese man who had a tumor, and God healed it, and he said if he healed it, he would. He was a Buddhist, and Buddha wouldn't do anything, and then he cried out to God, and then within a week, he said a Catholic girl was at his door, and she kept coming to his door and telling him about Christ, and he believed, and then he was saved, and then his tumor went away. I do believe those things. So I just wanted to show you one thing, and then I'm going to tell you a story, and then I'm going to let you go. I went through a lot of things, I feel, that I should have never had to have gone through. And I don't know what it was. To me, it felt like going through some type of fire. But quite honestly, they kept happening over and over and over. I'll get to that. You know how it says in the Old Testament that God requires the firstborn to be to the Lord? I always wondered why, if that is so, then why aren't of all the tribes, why aren't someone of every firstborn given to the Lord, right? That's a good question, isn't it? And I found the answer, a revelation yesterday, because I finished Deuteronomy and now I'm going through Numbers, and I found it. Okay, what does it say here? I thought I had it. Okay, let's just read this whole thing. This is Numbers 3, verse 5. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, bring the tribe of Levi. I'm having real trouble with brightness right now. Bring the tribe of Levi near and present them before Aaron the priest, that they may serve him. And they shall attend to his needs and the needs of the whole congregation before the tabernacle of meeting, to do the work of the tabernacle. And they shall attend to all the furnishings of the tabernacle of meeting and to the needs of the children of Israel, and do the work of the tabernacle. And you shall give the Levites to Aaron and his sons. They are given entirely to him from among the children of Israel. So you shall appoint Aaron and his sons, and they shall attend to their priesthood, but the outsider who comes near shall be put to death. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, now behold, I myself have taken the Levites from among the children of Israel instead, so you hear that, right? Instead of every firstborn who opens the womb among the children of Israel. So I always wondered that. Therefore the Levites shall be mine. That's why. The Levites serve God because, like I always wonder, because God always says the firstborn is to me. I'm like, well, how is that? Because it never really explains, but this is it. It's the Levites. They've taken that place. On the day that I struck all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, I sanctified to myself all the firstborn in Israel, both man and beast. They shall be mine. I am the Lord. And that's it. I'm having a difficult time right now, guys. I was cleaning out my apartment, moving around, and it's because of my eating, so not giving me excuses, it's just the way it is. I'm going to tell you a story of something that I went through that was really tough for me. I don't want to talk about all my pains and stuff like that, but when I was saying it the other day, I was talking about that, and I felt I just wanted to expand on this. Can you imagine, like, in 2004, I took a medication and I developed something called the serotonin syndrome. And it was about, it's an adverse event. It's a very serious event. I had a hypertensive crisis. I had all the signs there, you know, sweating, pupils dilating, all that type of stuff. But I was on other medications at the time, and the other ones, like I had to come off one to go on one, and the one I came off could have caused this too. It was like, it was confusing. I developed the serotonin syndrome, and I had it for 13 long months. I had convulsions, I had all type of stuff. Neurologists couldn't find out anything. They didn't even know it was the serotonin syndrome, even though I had 2 hypertensive crises. I was rushed to the hospital once. It was a black box warning, and I wasn't even aware. These are in the days, okay, where you just like, it wasn't easily, you know, available to look on the internet. Not a lot of information. It was there, but it just wasn't like it is now. I was, you know, a lot of confusion. I don't even want to go over the serotonin syndrome. That's what happened. It was just to a medium degree, because if it was higher, I probably would have died, and I'm sure that almost would have killed me. Through that, I developed something called the nosoplastic pain syndrome. It's just like the pain of CRPS. You know, aching, stabbing, throbbing, just over my full body intractable pain. For 3 years, I went without a diagnosis, and that did a number on me. And so the equivalency of this pain is, there's a reason they call it the pain-suicide diseases. And today I suffer with 4 of them. And my jaw, the back of my head, it's both of my jaws, but thank God I don't go through many of those attacks, but they happen. My jaw, my back of my head, my adhesive arachnoiditis, and that full body. So the full body is the one that happened first in 2004. From the just constant thrashing of my neck. It just started in my cervical back of my neck, spread over my body within a few months. No doctor was telling me what it was. I couldn't handle it. You know, I was on opiates, I was on gabapentin, and nothing was working. I was going to all the appointments. I was doing everything that I should have. No diagnosis, and that really did a number on me. I couldn't handle the pain, and I tried to take my life, right? If you've watched part 1 to 4, right? And it really makes a difference if you do know what you're dealing with, to steer you away from suicide. But I didn't have that, and I didn't know what to do. So I had a very severe injury in my abdomen. I'm not going to elaborate on that, but it was very serious. By 2000 and so what's that? I may have gone through 2007. I developed very severe adhesions on my abdomen, from my sternum to my pelvis, because I had to open up my abdomen. I developed very painful adhesions, and all of a sudden my painkillers weren't working the same way because of whatever happened to my abdomen. And it was a nightmare. All of a sudden my painkillers aren't working the same way. It's, you know, they're like, is it the painkillers itself? but it happened like, almost within 2 weeks of this injury healing. Anyways, it was my adhesions, and it was another syndrome building underneath. It's just hard to explain, but put it this way. So here I was dealing with full body intractable, the equivalency of RSD or CRPS, tight pain. And I'm going to all these, gastroenterologists, and they're telling me you have to get off to try to resolve the pain. I did that so many times. And I stayed off of it I came off of the opiate, and I stayed off of it it was either 3 to 6 months, but nothing was resolving. The diagnosis of the gastroenterologist, the narcotic bowel syndrome, they said, it wasn't that. And I knew it wasn't that because I just knew it wasn't. And here I was going doctor to doctor. Nobody could help me. My abdominal pain was so bad. And it didn't matter if I was on or off of an opiate. Obviously I was a bit better on an opiate, but eventually my pain would get worse, hyperalgesia. And so there was no specialist, no anyone who could help me anymore, and I was really desperate. So what do you do when you're in that spot, when like you go see someone, nothing's going to happen? I had ultrasounds in my abdomen to look at the progression of my scar and everything like that. And actually the ultrasound wasn't even that good for the scarring I had, and it wasn't even showing that there was an adhesion attached right to my sternum, so I didn't trust it, because here was a surgeon telling me one thing, but I could literally suck in my gut and I could see a long wire of adhesion holding right onto it. I felt like I was being gaslit, which they later admitted to, that it was adhered to it. So I went to the ER. I think I had gone to the ER so many times for my abdominal pain. I was off opiates. I was doing the right thing. I was clear-minded. And after they said they couldn't do something for me, I said, well, can you get me a psychiatrist? And my idea was to go into psychiatry, and then they would refer me to someone, and hopefully something would happen. That's what it was. It was about 10 o'clock at night. Just give me a second, guys. I gotta literally pace. This isn't to bring anyone down. This is to show suffering, I suppose. And this is, I'll just talk about it. So I waited a couple hours, and then a psychiatrist came in, and I talked to him, and I told him what the gastroenterologist said, that it was what narcotic bowel syndrome. And I remember telling him the medication that was meant for the narcotic bowel syndrome, it wasn't the narcotic bowel syndrome anyways, guys. That's what I'm saying. And so that's all I did. That's all I mentioned to this man. He said, if you follow the rules and everything, I will let you in. I felt really happy because I wasn't able to get in anywhere for anything. And that, in 2009, that was 2009. It was a very tough year for specialists and all that type of stuff waiting in Canada. So I was happy. I had my meds with me just in case, like my sleeping medication. And so I go in, and I'm not gonna feel shame about this. I've been in there before. They know who I am, and they know my medication. They know their files. If you've ever been to the hospital, they have your files. So I go in. It's maybe let's just say it was midnight. They said, okay, here's your room. I remember being right at the end of the hall. I took my own medication that night. They let me keep my meds, and because I have pain meds, other pain meds that aren't opiates. And I slept, and so I don't know. It was maybe 7 hours later. A nurse came to the door who I knew, and I got up and he said, "Yeah, I have your meds for you." And he was standing there, and he had a cup in his hand, like a little paper cup. I didn't think twice about it because I'd been through this before, okay? And I looked down. I thought, okay. I took them, and after you take them, whatever, do your shower, go and eat breakfast, right, in the main room for eating. I'm very uncomfortable. Just it's my abdomen is squeezing. This is my reality. That's why I usually, when I get up, I do my workout, and when I'm done my workout, eating and workout, shower, come out here, make my food for the day, have my oatmeal that I'm eating right now, and I make sure to do a video right at the start of eating. So instead, I did a whole bunch of work. Halfway through, this is what happens. So I go to the kitchen, to the main eating hall, dining hall, and I'm sitting down, and I like I said, clear-headed, but in a lot of abdominal pain. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's on a constant 9, very severe. You might call it chronic acute. I don't think I went to the eating hall immediately because it wasn't breakfast right away. So it had some time for those meds that I was given to work. Because by the time I sat down, something was wrong. Something was really wrong. Something was there that I didn't have before. I start to become like irritable. It's getting a little bit more and more. It's just like rising. And it's something that's impossible to ignore. What's developing is the worst feeling possible in a human being, and you'll understand in a second. So I start getting really irritable and agitated, just like I am right now with my abdominal pain. But a lot more. Something's going on in my nervous system. It gets to a point that I understand that I have to leave no matter what. I can't take this. I don't know what it is. I don't remember if I asked them. I don't think I did ask them what they gave me in my meds because I was so restless. And I was so restless, agitated and irritable. And I may have to cut this video, guys, because I'm really uncomfortable in my abdomen this time. I'll make another one. This is brutal. So I go to the front desk, and I said, I have to sign out. My parents were always very supportive and stuff like that. And I told them I got to sign out, and they're like, we don't recommend this, signing out AMA, against medical advice. I'm like, I have to go. And I called my parents. I'm like, Dad, you got to come pick me up. By the time he picked me up, it was only about a 10-minute drive to my house. And about halfway, it's just like full-blown something. I get home, and by that time, I couldn't even be in the same room as my own mother anymore because of what happened in my ears, like hyperacusis and all that type of stuff, and misophonia. And I sit down on the couch and I realize I know what this is. It's acute akathisia. If you know what that is, there's no worse feeling on planet Earth than acute akathisia. Not chronic, not induced any other way through like drug withdrawals. This is one that lasts usually for about 3 days, but in very severe cases goes over that. As soon as I got home, literally, I already say to my dad, you got to take me back. He takes me back, and it's my dad who goes in, and I say, yes, they gave him a Abilify. Even though my charts have a red warning to say don't give him any psychotic because it causes acute dyskinetic states. So it affects like the movement part of your brain. And acute akathisia and just akathisia, you become so restless. I'm talking a restlessness that you probably have never heard about. I do believe they probably use it in torture methods. They call it a deep-seated disquiet. You cannot sit down. When you sit down, you get back up. Your knees are, your leg is going up and down. Your arms are moving and flailing because you're so restless. Can you imagine that? And I've been through opiate withdrawals because I had to go through them, not because of addiction reasons, because of my abdominal pain. And so there I was with, the injury to my abdomen that I'd sustained, very severe pain, full body intractable CRPS equivalent pain. I'm off the opiates to try to get help. I walk in to get help, and what do? They give me that. I didn't deserve that. I wasn't psychotic. I wasn't anything. I was clear-headed and wanting help. Deep disquiet, agitation. You can't even barely speak. This is a reaction that causes a person to want to kill themselves immediately. It's not uncommon for people with this to jump off cliffs. I'm not kidding you, that's what it says. It's such a restless feeling that there is no hope. You feel no hope. So it's induced in the movement area of your brain, just like, Parkinson's and, like ALS and all those types of things. What a horrible time, but that's not it. Like, what do I do? So I go in the Emerge, and I can hardly remember this, okay? They tell my dad they gave him this. They gave me a shot of something called Cogentin, and it went down probably by maybe 25%, which was pretty good. But I was still in a very bad state because acute is much different than everything else. I'm allergic to this stuff. It induces it. So I'm like, this place is bad for my health. Not the first time. We go back home, and what do you do with a person who's in acute akathisia and trying to manage this pain? Just to be stop and be as honest as I can, I should be able to sue these people. It's in my charts. Why did you give me something that I'm allergic to that causes this, but yet you give it to me anyways? There was no indication for it. I came to you for help, for pain. So while I'm at home, I develop another dyskinetic disorder. I start getting a lot of pain in my neck, and it's like pushing my neck. I develop acute dystonia in my neck, and acute dystonia, like I said, the acute version is much worse than the regular version of dystonia. It's just brutal. My dad took me to another psychiatric hospital about 40 kilometers away. They took me in, and I went into their unit. Guys, I was in a desperate state. It had nothing to do with any psychiatric issues. It didn't, and I do have them. But that just wasn't it. I just wanted help. I just wanted to know, like, what's wrong with my abdomen? Why are these painkillers stopping to work? Why is it creating so much pain all of a sudden? And this is what happens. So I'm in there, and all I can do is pace their hallways, because that's all you can do. I remember it was like breakfast and or some meal of the day, and I remember sitting down with other people at the table, and I'm like sitting down, and I was forcing myself to sit down, just want to get back up. I couldn't, like, I had sat down for just a tiny bit, and I had to get back up, because as I sat there, I recognized you can't even eat. You can't eat. You can't eat, you can't sit, you can't stand. It's brutal. I think that was all in the same day. It was in the same day. I believe I stayed there for a period of 2 to 3 days in total. And my dad had to correct me on that. I thought I stayed there later. Maybe I went there later. I still don't honestly know that part. So I had a second dyskinetic disorder. And I'm guessing that I developed them so easily is because I have autism. Different nerve pathology, right, in the brain. And if that wasn't enough, I developed a third one. This was from a drug called Abilify that later went on, about 3 years after that, to be vilified because of its horrible effects on people. I developed what's called oppress thoughtness. So I had acute akathisia, acute dystonia in my neck, no painkillers with all those pains. The muscles in my spine became dystonic. And the only thing I could do was go to my room that I had and bend backwards over the bed, over tables, over chairs to relieve it, because there's nothing I could do. I had to call my dad a number of times, and he traveled all the way over to give me long-acting morphine. He did that, I think, twice. I had to take them. There was no other option. Anyways, that's it. And I never was in any state to do anything about it. And the whole reaction lasted for 10 full days. And it was a nightmare, and it led all the way to what happened with my legs. I couldn't stand my life. It was very tough, and that's why I talk about regeneration. You can tell why I don't want to do any more pain videos and talk about these things, but they're true. My life ended up in a certain way because of actions of other people. I'm not saying there weren't things that I didn't do myself, but those were mostly before all of that. I don't think my family really knows what I went through during that time, or people and my friends. I felt betrayed by the medical system. I was lucid. I was just fine. I was put through things like that so many times that, anyways, guys, here's my bottom line. There's no other way but through Jesus Christ. And for some reason, I went through a lot of those types of things. Just brutal. There was nothing worse in the world than acute akathisia, a reaction that makes you so incredibly restless. You would have to look at it yourself. You'd have to find a video of what it looks like. You'd have to read the symptoms of it. It's brutal. I don't want to end this, guys, with a bad message. I'm actually not doing well. I might get well after taking pain meds, but this is just the way my life goes. I don't want to bring a downer, and on the bright side, I'm just waiting for our complete regeneration. That's what I'm waiting for. And I think it's coming soon. I'm waiting for peace and safety. That's what I'm waiting for. And you know what? Actually, I want to say something else to that, and then I'll let you go. See, I have another YouTube channel where I talk about all the things that I'd been through. Because, can you imagine, I had all these conditions, I didn't have a diagnosis. Around 2018, I started making YouTube videos. Why did I start making those videos? Because I didn't have any friends anymore. I had friends, but I was in such a state that I couldn't associate with really anybody at that point. It's just pointless. I was really sick. No treatment, no name, no nothing. So I started making YouTube videos, and lo and behold, by doing that, I started to find answers through other people helping me. And I was helping them, of course. So I have another channel, and I just got to the point where I was talking about both, you know, on the neurodevelopmental side, on the psychiatric side, and of course, pain. And I did that to a point where I just felt like it was all about pain and nothing good. But then, of course, you know, I started to try to tell and teach people how to get better, and I know how to teach people how to get better, how to rebuild their lives, what they should do with their diet and their sleep and all that type of stuff. But yeah, I got to a point where it was just too much, and I made this channel because I started studying the Bible, started looking into that, started to realize my Catholic upbringing was a farce. Not all of it, but, you know, the Catholic system. This is the last thing I want to say. You and I are waiting for peace and safety and sudden destruction. But the thing confuses me, right? That's, what is it, 1 Thessalonians 5? But then it goes on to Thessalonians 2, where it says, that it won't come until the falling away happens first. So the question is, which one is first? And when I look personally, and I've made some videos about this, I believe that the falling away has already in at least its mid state. Look at all the blasphemous stuff out there, you know, like Duplantis, Copeland, all those different people. It's to such a high degree, and you look at Bethel Church and all these things, no one's really teaching about the truth. Who knows, that may be it. I'm just confused about those two. But when you look at the wars that's happening right now in Ukraine and Israel, my best guess would be Israel we're looking for, but I can't be sure. Anyways, I'm confused about those two. Which one? Those two can be confusing. I'm going to cut this video off, guys, because I'm so uncomfortable. But anyways, I wanted to explain that because I had talked about it in another video, and I wanted to expand upon that. I do want to share some of my suffering, but never to a point where that's all it is.